Thank you so much for holding the elevator door. Are you perhaps Miss Jennifer Reddy, the Vancouver School Board trustee? Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Reddy. My name is Sabrina Wong, and I'm a classroom teacher with the Vancouver School Board. I've actually been teaching for over a decade, and I was actually prior to this a student with the Vancouver School Board when I was all the way from kindergarten all the way up to grade 12. In fact, this year, my son, who's turning 5, will be starting kindergarten in the Vancouver School Board. It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Reddy. So I was wondering, since we have some time, is it possible, if you don't mind, for me to take a few minutes of your time to make a proposal that's very near and dear to my heart? Thank you so much for your time and consideration. So what I'd like to suggest and make a proposal about is something that I think will align with your views as a Vancouver School Board trustee. I know one of the roles of the trustee is to ensure that schools provide students with safe and excellent learning opportunities for quality education. And I see that from based on the Vancouver School Board website that you are a member of the Education Plan Committee with the VSB, and that you have a master's in social policy and development along with a certificate in curriculum development and instructional design. So I feel like you're the perfect person to talk to about this proposal that I have. My proposal is that the Vancouver School Board should add an American Sign Language program to their list of choice programs offered in elementary and secondary schools in Vancouver. Similar in operation, I suppose, to the Mandarin Immersion and French Immersion programs. And I'll give you some information about why I feel like this would be an excellent program for the VSB to run, and as a school board trustee, why you would be the right person to implement this and get the ball rolling on it. I know that you're part of the VSB's Education Plan Committee, which launches in 2026, and two of the goals really align with what I'm suggesting here. Goal number 1 is to improve the physical and mental well-being of all learners and students and their families, and goal number 2 is to eliminate gaps in achievement among all learners and their outcomes. So my suggestion about running and implementing an American Sign Language K-12 program would meet all of these needs and more. Currently, there's a gap in servicing our deaf and hard of hearing learners and their families in VSB schools. In fact, many deaf and hard of hearing learners are vulnerable in the areas of social development and report feelings of isolation and are more likely to be ostracized with their peers. They often require a safe, open, and inclusive community to thrive and learn. In fact, in Lenahan's book, Preparing to Teach, Committing to Learn, in Susan Lenahan's book, she cites that children who are deaf and hard of hearing are at an increased risk for social problems because of the nuances of communication. They risk social rejection by peers and others, and this places them at an increased risk for developing mental health problems down the road. Did you know, Ms. Reddy, that 95% of deaf children are born to hearing parents and families, and many of these parents have never met an individual who is deaf? This is cited from Susan Lenahan and Stephanie Gardner-Walsh from the same book. Our deaf and hard of hearing learners in traditional programs are being serviced, but they're not receiving the targeted support from experienced and trained teachers and a robust resource team. And this leaves them with limited resources, and together we need to provide their families, deaf and hard of hearing learners and their families, options in which they can choose, and we can work together as a team to best support these learners. One last reason and information and data for you would be, if you look at Dr. Laura Ann Petito's research from Gallaudet University, she has data that supports how multiple modalities of communication and American Sign Language are beneficial for all learners, not just those who are deaf and hard of hearing. ASL has the same rights as spoken language, and it's been proven time and time again through her research that language is learned through patterns, not just through auditory input. And multiple language, as has been shown in multiple research across the board, but especially in Dr. Laura Ann Petito's research, multiple languages and learning multiple languages from a young age benefit all learners. And so you might be wondering, why am I making this argument and why is it so important to me? Well, there's two reasons. One, I'm a child of a father who is hard of hearing. And so this is very personal to me, that I feel like if I had learned American Sign Language and he had learned, then maybe we could have communicated better. But also, as a classroom teacher who has worked with many students and some who have been deaf and hard of hearing in a traditional program, within the VSB, as an educator, I didn't feel well supported in developing programming that was best suited for my learners who were deaf and hard of hearing, due to my lack of training, due to limited resources from the board, and also limited personnel who were available and able to answer my questions as a classroom teacher. Deaf and hard of hearing learners deserve a better public education system that can support their learning needs, not just academically, but for their social emotional growth and support. And having that community with an ASL program that's running will provide them what they need to be successful learners. And also their families. Students and families learning from each other in this kind of program setup would provide a better understanding of what the deaf community needs and develop allyship and open-mindedness. Lastly, with the decreasing number of deaf schools across Canada, this program would spark more pre-service teachers to enroll with a special focus on deaf and hard of hearing, and encourage colleges and universities as a result to provide more deaf, hard of hearing focused courses for their teacher candidates. So pre-service teachers going into the teacher ed program would have more background knowledge and know how to help students who are deaf and hard of hearing. And you might be wondering, well, what happens if we don't have these programs? What happens if we don't offer a K-12 American Sign Language choice program? Well, I feel like that would be really detrimental to our deaf and hard of hearing learners. They would remain at risk of social isolation and mental health challenges and not achieve their full potential as learners. Also, all students and families, regardless of hearing ability, will lose out on the opportunity to further develop our sense of community, allyship, open-mindedness, and dispelling prejudice. So you might be wondering, what is my essential request? My request is that the VSB offer an American Sign Language K-12 program that offers the BC curriculum but also educates our students on the history and culture of the deaf community. This program should be open to all individuals with a wide range of hearing abilities, but most especially should be servicing our deaf and hard of hearing families. And the VSB schools would need to create a more inclusive and open-minded and safe space for the social emotional growth of all our learners. So, Ms. Reddy, I'm asking that you speak to your fellow school trustees about trialing and implementing an American Sign Language choice program similar to Mandarin Immersion and French Immersion in our elementary and secondary schools. My takeaway message here is this: equity is important in public education. Diversity is important in public education. And in the words of Lenehan and Walsh, American Sign Language provides a community unlike any other modality of communication. It provides a rich history and an ever-present voice of self-worth and pride in one's deaf game. How we choose to program in public education can be impactful and positive, not just for our deaf and hard of hearing learners, but for all learners and their families. In adding an ASL K-12 program with the VSB, we will be helping to build stronger communities, opening minds while dispelling prejudice, and fostering growth in all of our learners. Ultimately, our goal in public education is to have more inclusive, flexible, and diverse group of learners and children who will lead us in the future. And I strongly believe, that in offering this choice program, we can do all those things and more. So thank you, Ms. Reddy, for taking the time to listen and consider my proposal. And I'm happy to leave you my contact information if you have any further questions. Thank you.